March 18, 2023, Riverside Memorial Chapel, Ohio. 300 mourners gathered to say goodbye to beloved teacher Robert Mitchell. Instead, they witnessed the most shocking proposal in American history. Pastor William Thompson stepped to the pulpit, looked directly at the grieving widow, and said the words that would expose a calculated plan involving grooming, manipulation, and murder. Jennifer Mitchell, I am asking you, here and now, to become my wife. The casket containing her husband's body sat just feet away. The silence was deafening. But this wasn't just inappropriate. It was the final move in a deadly game that had been years in the making. What you're about to hear is how a man of God became a killer, and how a funeral proposal revealed one of Ohio's most disturbing crimes.
Welcome to Crime Vault, your home of true crime, dark mysteries, and deep investigations.
The service had begun normally. Amazing grace filled the chapel. Pastor Thompson read Psalm 23. 13-year-old Timothy Mitchell delivered a moving tribute to his father. Jennifer sat in the front row with her 3 children, trusting the man who had been their spiritual counselor for 9 years. Everything proceeded as it should. Then Thompson paused after the eulogy. Something in his tone changed. Gone was the gentle pastoral voice, replaced by something urgent, commanding. Before we close this service, I have something I must share with you all. He stepped away from the pulpit, approaching Jennifer directly. God has shown me that you should not walk through this valley alone. I have prayed about this, and the Lord has revealed that you need a shepherd for your family. The congregation shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't part of any funeral service they recognized. Then came the words that shocked the nation. Jennifer Mitchell, I am asking you, here and now, in front of this congregation that loves you, to consider becoming my wife. The horror was immediate. People gasped. Others walked out. Jennifer's body went rigid. Through her veil, she whispered, I can't breathe. But Thompson wasn't finished. Standing next to Robert's casket, he continued with absolute confidence. God's timing is not our timing. You need a shepherd. Your children need guidance. I offered to be your husband, your protector, your spiritual covering. When Jennifer finally found her voice, it was barely audible. I can't, please, not now, not here. As the congregation fled in horror, they carried with them the disturbing knowledge that their trusted pastor had crossed an unthinkable line. But this was just the beginning. How does a man of God become capable of such betrayal? The answer lies in understanding who Robert Mitchell was and why someone wanted him dead. Robert Mitchell was everything a small town values. Born in 1981 to parents who'd tried 8 years to conceive, he was raised with steady Midwest values that shaped him into the man everyone respected. By age 10, Robert was organizing classmates to help the injured school janitor. In high school, he was the quarterback who credited his offensive line and the honor student who tutored struggling classmates for free. He could have gone anywhere after graduation, but chose to stay in Riverside, becoming a 5th-grade teacher at the same elementary school where his mother had worked. His classroom was always open early, stayed late. Students adored him. Parents trusted him completely.
In 2006, Robert married Jennifer Walsh at Riverside Community Church, with Pastor Thompson, then new to the congregation, officiating. Jennifer had moved to Riverside seeking stability after her parents' bitter divorce. In Robert, she found safety, consistency, and unwavering devotion. Their marriage became the template for what a faithful partnership should look like. 3 children followed: Timothy in 2011, Katie in 2013, Emma in 2015. Robert was the father who built elaborate blanket forts, read bedtime stories in different voices, never missed a game or recital. The Mitchell family became fixtures in community life. Robert coached Little League, served on the school board. When elderly neighbors needed help, Robert appeared with lawnmowers and groceries. When families faced crisis, the Mitchells opened their home. Robert's friend, Mark Stevens, recalls that Robert never talked about what he did for people. You'd hear about it from others. Anonymous groceries appearing on doorsteps, broken down cars mysteriously repaired, struggling families quietly helped through teacher collections Robert had organized. This was the man who trusted his pastor completely, who brought his family to church every Sunday, who welcomed Thompson's counseling as a blessing. Robert Mitchell believed in the fundamental goodness of people, especially those claiming to serve God. This trust would become the weapon used to destroy him. But Thompson wasn't targeting Robert. His real prey was Jennifer, and the systematic grooming had already begun. Pastor William Thompson arrived in Riverside in 2005 like an answer to prayer. At 52, he brought impressive credentials and a commanding presence that filled rooms the moment he entered. Within months, Sunday attendance increased 20%. His sermons masterfully wove scripture with personal insight. He attended every football game, volunteered at the food bank, visited the sick. The community didn't just respect him, they revered him. Thompson had a special ministry for what he called wounded hearts, women dealing with difficult marriages, overwhelmed single mothers, lonely widows. He scheduled private evening counseling sessions in his office, claiming women needed different spiritual care than men. Former congregant Linda Washington recalls, Pastor Thompson understood women in a way most pastors didn't. He seemed to have direct insight into your personal struggles. How could you not trust someone so connected to God's will? By 2015, Thompson had become indispensable, the town's unofficial counselor, crisis manager, and moral compass. Parents brought troubled teenagers to him, couples sought his guidance on major decisions. He knew which marriages were struggling before problems became public. It was during this period of maximum influence that Thompson encountered the Mitchell family in 2014. Robert was immediately impressed by Thompson's community involvement. Jennifer found comfort in his understanding approach to women's spirituality. The grooming began subtly. When Jennifer struggled with severe morning sickness during her third pregnancy, Thompson started visiting with groceries, claiming the Lord had laid it on his heart to help. These pastoral visits became regular spiritual counseling sessions, eventually moving from the church to the Mitchell home during school hours. Thompson told Jennifer that mothers carried unique spiritual burdens most pastors didn't understand. He had been given a special calling to minister to struggling mothers. The sessions involved increasingly intimate prayers for her by name, for her marriage, her fears, her dreams. Jennifer later explained, Pastor Thompson made me feel like I wasn't alone. He had time to really listen, to understand the spiritual aspects of what I was dealing with. The relationship deepened when Jennifer's mother died of cancer in 2018. Thompson became constant support, driving to appointments, sitting in hospital waiting rooms, conducting the funeral with such compassion that Jennifer felt he'd truly known her mother. Phone records would later reveal hundreds of calls between Thompson and Jennifer, many lasting over an hour during Robert's work hours. Text messages showed progression from pastoral concern to increasingly personal communication. By 2022, Jennifer had become one of Thompson's most devoted followers. She attended every service, participated in every ministry event, looked to Thompson for guidance on everything from child rearing to finances. Her faith had become deeply personal, centered on her relationship with a pastor who seemed to understand her soul. When Robert died suddenly in early 2023, Jennifer was a 38-year-old widow with 3 children, no close family nearby, and limited resources. She was emotionally and spiritually dependent on a man who'd spent years positioning himself as her protector. Jennifer thought she'd built spiritual intimacy with a man of God. She'd actually been groomed for betrayal. But first, Robert, the obstacle to Thompson's ultimate goal, needed to be eliminated. The call came at 3:17 a.m. on March 15, 2023.
Nurse Patterson from Riverside General. Robert had been brought in by ambulance. Jennifer needed to come immediately. Robert had driven himself to the hospital after experiencing chest pain and left arm radiating pain, classic heart attack symptoms. Security cameras captured him walking slowly through emergency room doors at 2:45 a.m., one hand pressed to his chest but maintaining his characteristic calm demeanor. The medical team responded quickly. Robert's EKG showed irregularities, blood work indicated a heart attack in progress. But as he was prepared for cardiac catheterization, his condition deteriorated rapidly. He went into cardiac arrest at 3:05 a.m. 12 minutes of frantic resuscitation efforts restored his heartbeat, but the damage was severe. When Jennifer arrived, Robert was unconscious on a ventilator, surrounded by machines keeping him alive. Pastor Thompson arrived within an hour, bringing spiritual comfort that seemed like divine timing. He stayed all day, praying with Jennifer, organizing community prayer chains, making sure she ate. Jennifer would later say Thompson was like an angel during those horrible hours. But despite medical intervention and hundreds of prayers, Robert's condition continued deteriorating. He never regained consciousness. At 6:23 p.m. on March 16th, surrounded by family and Pastor Thompson, Robert Mitchell was pronounced dead at age 42. The official cause of death, massive myocardial infarction, a heart attack. For a 42-year-old man with no history of heart disease, no risk factors, who exercised regularly and ate well, it seemed like cruel fate. But 3 months after Thompson's funeral proposal shocked the nation and triggered investigations, toxicology results revealed the truth. Robert Mitchell had been poisoned. Traces of digitalis, a plant-based compound that mimics heart attack symptoms, were found in his system. In small doses, digitalis causes irregular heartbeats that appear natural. In larger doses, it causes the exact cardiac arrest that killed Robert. Detective Sarah Chen, who led the investigation, explains, "Someone with medical knowledge used digitalis to trigger what would appear to be a natural heart attack. The timing was precise, enough to cause fatal cardiac arrest, but administered close enough to death that standard initial toxicology wouldn't detect it." The investigation revealed Thompson had extensive botanical knowledge from his seminary studies in medicinal plants. His personal library contained books on herbal remedies, including detailed information about digitalis extraction from foxglove plants, which grew wild behind Riverside Community Church. Phone records showed Thompson had called Robert the night he died, around 10 p.m., asking to stop by for urgent pastoral counseling. Neighbors confirmed seeing a car matching Thompson's sedan in the Mitchell driveway around 11:30 p.m., less than 4 hours before Robert's fatal heart attack.
Security footage from a nearby gas station showed Thompson purchasing bottled water at 11:15 p.m. The bottle was never found, but investigators believe it contained the digitalis solution used to poison Robert. Jennifer's testimony revealed the crucial final piece. Thompson had specifically told her not to go to the hospital with Robert, claiming she needed to stay home with the children and that he would meet Robert there to provide spiritual support. But Thompson never went to the hospital that night. He appeared the next morning, after Robert was already dying, with perfect timing to comfort the grieving widow. Thompson's arrest came 6 months after the funeral proposal that had shocked the nation. He was charged with first-degree murder, conspiracy, and abuse of pastoral authority. During police interviews, Thompson maintained his innocence, claiming God had truly called him to marry Jennifer and provide for her children. He showed no remorse for the funeral proposal, insisting it was divine revelation, not calculated manipulation. Jennifer's victim impact statement revealed the full scope of Thompson's betrayal. "He didn't just kill my husband, he murdered my faith. For years, I thought I was building a spiritual relationship with a man of God. I was actually being prepared for the ultimate betrayal." The trial revealed the systematic nature of Thompson's predation. Investigators found evidence of similar grooming patterns with 3 other widows in his previous congregations. None had been harmed, but all described identical manipulation tactics, special counseling sessions, claims of divine insight into their struggles, and inappropriate intimacy disguised as spiritual care. Child psychologists testified about the trauma inflicted on Timothy, Katie, and Emma, not just losing their father, but witnessing their trusted pastor's horrific proposal at his funeral. All 3 children required extensive therapy to process the dual betrayal of death and spiritual manipulation. The prosecution argued that Thompson had spent nearly a decade grooming Jennifer, waiting for the perfect moment to eliminate Robert and claim his family. The funeral proposal wasn't spontaneous, grief-induced poor judgment. It was the culmination of a calculated murder plot. Thompson was convicted on all charges and sentenced to life without parole. In his final statement, he maintained that God would vindicate his actions, showing no remorse for Robert's murder or the trauma inflicted on 3 innocent children. Jennifer Mitchell moved away from Riverside with her children, seeking privacy and healing far from the community where their trusted spiritual leader became their destroyer. She rarely grants interviews, but did say, "People ask how I could trust him for so long. But that's what predators do. They become exactly what you need them to be until they don't need to pretend anymore." Riverside Community Church closed permanently 6 months after Thompson's conviction. The building stands empty, a monument to how trust can become a weapon, and how those we follow in the name of God can lead us into the deepest darkness. The case remains a chilling reminder that evil often wears the most trusted faces, speaks the most comforting words, and hides behind the most sacred institutions. Robert Mitchell deserved better than the betrayal that killed him. His children deserved better than watching their father's funeral become the scene of their mother's manipulation. And Jennifer deserved better than learning that 9 years of faith was actually 9 years of grooming. But perhaps their story serves as a warning. The most dangerous predators are those who first establish themselves as protectors, healers, and servants of God. In small towns like Riverside, we want to believe that our spiritual leaders are who they claim to be. William Thompson understood that trust and used it to commit the perfect murder.
Welcome to Crime Vault, your home of true crime, dark mysteries, and deep investigations.